Good evening, everyone. I'm Lissa Muscatine, co-owner of Politics and Prose in Washington, D.C. Along with my husband and co-owner Brad Graham and our entire staff, we welcome you to tonight's event. And we are so happy to be hosting this in partnership with our good friends at Harvard Bookstore in Cambridge and Books and Books in Miami, truly two of the best bookstores in the nation. I hope you visit them if you haven't ever yet. And please come to PNP also. We're always excited when Chef Alice Waters is on hand to share her thoughts about food. Tonight, she'll tell us about her new book. It's her 16th. I actually had to go back and count because there have been so many. This one is called We Are What We Eat, a Slow Food Manifesto. It's personal, it's political, it's poetic, it's polemical, and because it's Alice Waters, of course, it is persuasive. Working with her collaborators and co-authors, she spent nearly a decade refining her theory of the case for slow food, why it's healthier, more economically just, more environmentally sound, more pleasing to the senses, and so essential to building and sustaining the sorts of caring, compassionate communities that we human beings actually thrive in. And I should say, by way of truth in advertising and at the outset, that I'm a native of Berkeley, California, where Alice founded Chez Panisse in 1971 and then helped launch the slow food movement in this country. Of course, it's global. And it's impossible to grow up in Berkeley and not be inspired by Alice's cooking and her philosophy that we are what we eat. I remember my parents proudly wearing little lapel pins of a snail right here to show their loyal allegiance to the slow food revolution, even way back when. Not only have Alice and Chez Panisse transformed how we think about food in relation to restaurants especially, she's applied her philosophy in other realms, so many other realms, supporting gardens run by prisoners in the Bay Area and launching the Edible Schoolyard Project, which began in one Berkeley middle school a couple of decades ago and now integrates food cultivation and food literacy into the academic curriculum at schools across the country and even overseas. For her lifetime of food advocacy, Alice has received the National Humanities Award, the French Legion of Honor Medal, the Cavaliere of the Italian Republic. That was fun to say. And 3 James Beard Awards. Pretty soon she's going to have, helicopters and battleships and all sorts of other things named after her. But Alice, thank you so much for being with us this very week that We Are What We Eat is being launched. It's literally hot off the presses. This is what it looks like, everyone. And by the way, a couple of booksellers at PNP today and I were all salivating over this particular loaf of bread, wishing that we had ever once in our life produced one that looked just quite that delicious. So that's a goal, and we're all aspiring to that. And this book it's such a gem, Alice, that you've produced. I really think it should be required reading for anyone who eats. Also tonight, we're delighted to have as our moderator, the New York Times national food correspondent, Kim Severson. I was thinking earlier that Kim is a journalistic version of Alice Waters, writing about food trends in a broader social context and generating public awareness in the process. During her career at the Times, Kim has won awards for her coverage of childhood obesity and a Pulitzer Prize for the newspaper's reporting in 2018 on sexual harassment and abuse against women. And by the way, she's also the author of 4 books. We're just so thrilled to have you both with us tonight. It's going to be a great conversation. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And it's yours. The floor is yours. The screen is yours.
Nice. Well, Alice, how the hell are you?
Well, I'm looking right now out to my redwood tree in the backyard, and it just feels so good to see you and Lissa, even virtually.
Yeah,
really
I can't wait.
Like we're in the same room.
Can't wait till we're back and able to see each other in person and do these things. So I do have to ask you the question, which vaccine did you get?
I got the Moderna.
Okay. All right. Every team Moderna. I feel like that's the first question I want to know from everybody. It's the new, like, how about those Yankees? That's what. And how did you do during the pandemic? What did you do to keep yourself together and kind of keep yourself grounded?
Well, I was very lucky to have my daughter come and live with me for the first 7 months.
Wow.
And she hasn't been home in a very, very long time. And we really got to know each other again. It was just great.
That's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. And you got along. There were no.
Well, she's got her story and I have mine. But I think we always met in the kitchen about 3 o'clock in the afternoon and made garlic toast.
It's fantastic.
We have an edible schoolyard loaf of bread that Acme makes, and it's we just kind of put in the toaster, rub it with garlic, and pour olive oil on it, and we just both just had this little moment that felt so important to us.
It's lovely. And what's in your basket there in your office?
Oh, these are apricots. It's that moment
It's
in Berkeley, California. And I love it because it's, in a way, it's so fleeting this time. It may last a month if you're lucky. But the little tiny Blenheim apricots have always been something very special at Chez Panisse. And we make apricot galettes, and I know they're making those to go right now at Chez Panisse.
And they're so beautiful, and they're so thin-skinned and delicate, and you can't ship them or get them any other way. You have to get them right there.
And some of them are really red, and some of them are, little tiny.
Right.
So,
All these people paid all this money, and they're like, okay, I love the fruit, but let's get down to the meat of the business. Although I'm dying over
although this is the truth of it all. It's about seasonality. It's about eating in season, always, and local, because that's when you get ripe food. And I just came to the local organic people because I was looking for taste. And I became just engaged with seasonality because that's where taste was.
But you when you first started cooking at Chez Panisse 50 years ago, and congratulations on this being your anniversary year. Yeah. You were trying to make menus, sort of French menus, and sort of different menu every night to bring diners in. And you at first were trying to execute with technique and weren't thinking ingredients, right? And then there was a flip. So when you started to work on taste and work on the ingredients, there was kind of an early shift, right? But a really essential one to make Chez Panisse what it is.
It was an early shift, but when you have only one menu, you have to really come up with something that people are going to like. And so we had to keep changing, and we kept looking. And then we ended up at the doorsteps of the local people. But we went to farm stands to get food for the restaurant. I remember going to Brentwood to get corn. And so we could make that corn soup. And that's something that I think is hard to imagine a restaurant doing. But in fact, that was the pleasure of running the restaurant, in a way, that we would meet these people that were so passionate about what they did.
And I'm not
learned
sure.
so much.
Right, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No.
I was going to say, I don't think people understand how revolutionary that was at the time to actually start relationships with farmers like that for a restaurant. And, you started putting their names on a menu, which now is kind of spoofed sometimes, but it was revolutionary at the time. Mescaline salad mix. I don't think,
that was unusual.
That was yours. If anybody ever asks, if you see a bag of salad and you wonder how the American cultural sluice box got to the point where they have those, and this is in your book too, they have those, bags of mescaline mix. They don't really taste like anything. But and I think your book is about getting us back to that original mescaline mix in a way, right?
Exactly.
Getting us back
it is.
to flavor and taste. So I really am, I was curious about, and I want to talk a little bit about process and how you put the book together. And I thought after your 2017 memoir, Coming to My Senses, I thought it was a great book, and I thought you would just drop the mic and I'm done, and you didn't need to do any more. But why did you decide to do this one?
Because I couldn't drop the friendship and the process, really, of working with Christina and Bob, they helped all the time to shape the ideas. And they both had different sort of points of view. I mean, Bob was somebody just said, oh, do it, say this. And Christina would say, maybe that's not the right term. And then I'd say, well, I have to say it like this. And we just went around to everything that way. We had kind of learned the process from the memoir. And then we looked forward to meeting at 10 o'clock in the morning, 10 to noon, twice a week. And we did it for more than 2 years.
Wow. Wow.
But the idea for the book was in the making a long time ago, because I was giving talks around the country and Bob was helping me to write those speeches. And they were about the fast food values. The way that when we eat fast food, we don't just eat the food that's not good for us. We digest, I should say, the values that come with the food. So more is better.
So it became pretty clear. You sort of break it into this. The first half of the book is the list of what I would call the 7 deadly sins, maybe just the sort of 7 parts of fast food culture that are the trouble spots. And then the second half are the 7 sort of pillars of salvation, we'll call them. I just want to, for people who haven't read the book, I'm just going to go through what those 7 things are, the 7 sins first, which is convenience, uniformity, availability, trust in advertising, cheapness, more is better, and speed. So these are all the things that make us think we should get food at any time, at any place. The convenience piece really spoke to me, where you talked about, we'll order toothpaste online and wait 24 hours to get it when we could just take a 15-minute trip to the drugstore and get that toothpaste. That is that real convenience, and how, and the idea of cheapness. So of those 7, could you pick one that is like the biggest threat, or the thing you're worrying the most about in terms of a threat to our culture, and certainly our culinary culture, but our social culture?
It's hard to choose,
Right.
but I think probably the idea that food is fast, cheap, and easy, should be fast, cheap, and easy, especially cheap. Because food has always been precious. Since the beginning of civilization, people were concerned about food first. And all of a sudden, we wanted the food to be cheap because we wanted to buy the things. And it's changed our whole way of thinking to the point where we waste food. We just throw it out because it's so cheap.
And I don't think people see the hidden cost, right? The cost of labor, the cost of what the animals are going through on the CAFOs, the industrial farms, and the cost of shipping and things that are ruining the environment. So I think that, dollar value menu is really incredibly expensive in other ways, right?
And how about our health?
And
very particularly climate and the environment. I mean, what we have compromised for cheap food.
Right.
And that was just something really sold to us 60 years ago. So
No, go ahead. I'm so sorry.
No, I was just going to say that when I grew up in New Jersey back in the late 40s, I mean, we never threw anything away. And it was, we had a tiny little garbage can for a week of garbage. And my mother saved all the newspapers and wrapping paper from presents. We just did that. They had a victory garden during the war, and we turned out the lights when we left a room. I didn't realize that I learned these things, and they've never left me.
I think that, I guess the Gen Zs, for lack of a better phrase, but I think those folks, there's such energy around climate and conservation and handmade things and Etsy and vintage shopping. And there's, not driving, maybe figuring out a different way to get around. I just see that among the 13, 14 high school set right now. And it's kind of heartening,
It is,
yeah, I think so.
but it just needs to be understood very, very quickly.
Mhm.
And that's why I keep going to public education.
Right,
It's our last truly democratic institution.
right.
All kids go to school or should.
Right.
And
But I think,
here we have that place where we could teach from kindergarten.
well, you've started this. I mean, I think the concept, I remember interviewing you when the first concept of the Edible Schoolyard came up, this idea that you could use a garden as a classroom. And we were just like, what is she talking about? And now, it's everywhere, and gardens are a part of school campuses, and some more than others, and curriculum some more than others. But that notion of teach a kid how to grow a carrot and they're going to want to eat carrots seems universal now. It seems hard to imagine that not being taught in schools, even in big, very urban centered schools.
I wish
So
that were true,
congratulations.
Kim.
Mazel tov. I mean, it's
I
not as
wish-
fast as you would like. We know that, but
I never, what the point that I wanted to make though, is that we're not teaching gardening per se or cooking. We're teaching math and science and history in a garden. We're teaching a language in the kitchen. We're speaking Spanish and we're cooking a tortilla soup. So we're not teaching those subjects. They're just being absorbed sort of by osmosis. They want to be in the garden learning math. They want to be learning math because they're in the garden.
Mhm, mhm.
And so it's a way of opening up their senses. And that sort of came to me because of Maria Montessori, who worked in the slums of Naples and of India. And she wondered how to teach children that she called sensorily deprived.
Hmm.
And here we are living in a fast food culture. And we've all been sensorily deprived. We're not smelling, we're not tasting, we're not listening carefully, we're seeing. And so we are not getting information into our minds. Those are our pathways.
Mhm.
So having this food, edible education is doing what Montessori did, which is engaging children in an interactive way,
Mhm.
which we've always known as the best way to teach, yet we
Right.
don't do it.
Right. Well, and now, of course, in the digital age, and we've all spent a year with kids learning online, and
Mhm.
every parent's fight is against their devices, and at least not every parent, but many. So it's an interesting moment. And I also think our food supply tech is also trying to solve what the tech world perceives as problems in our food supply. So climate's an issue because there's agriculture that contributes to that. So the solution is an Impossible Burger, right? So it's a gateway to get people to not eat so much beef, but still have that beef sensibility. We have lab grown meat coming up. There are so many hydroponic and vertical farms that are now growing vegetables to try to, you think about a vertical farm or someplace where you can grow the lettuce fairly locally. You can control the environment. You have to use pesticides. You don't have to ship it across the country. You don't have to pay people terrible slave labor wages to pick it. You can keep it, people won't get infected or people won't get sick with E. coli. So why are these things so bad? Or are they? And have you ever had an Impossible Burger?
I haven't. I haven't. I have to say, but I'm come to understand that nutrition is in the soil. It's with all of those worms, all of those enzymes and the beautiful rich compost that soil becomes when farmers are really taking care of the land. That's where the nutrition is. And we were lucky to have training from Bob Kennard, who was a very early regenerative ag person. He was somebody who was growing cover crops and a mix of those different things around all of the vegetables, companion planting. He was making his own amazing compost, wanted all the scraps from Chez Panisse.
And your father found him, right? I mean, tell people a little bit about who he was. So this is back in the day, you were trying to get the restaurant going, and your father and mother set out and interviewed farmers all over California for you, right?
They actually went to Davis and they got a list of farms that were within 1 hour of Chez Panisse.
And this is what, 75, 70?
Yeah, right in there, right in the late 70s. And they visited the farms, and they said, we only have 3 that we liked, but only one that I think is crazy enough to work with Chez Panisse. And that was Bob Kennard.
Yeah.
And we learned so much from him. He brought the values into the kitchen door.
Yeah.
And so I believe that that could happen with the public school system. The local farmers and ranchers and fishers could bring that knowledge and that experience, that enthusiasm, that passion for the land right in. And yeah.
Oh, go ahead. I was just going to tell all of our viewers that we're going to be taking some questions. So I want you all to go to your keyboards and feel free to send your questions in now, and we'll curate them and in a little bit let you all get your questions directly to Alice. But you know, I know that you have certainly taken your share of hits for your unwavering devotion to the cause. And people say you have impossible goals and not flexible enough. And sometimes you're so focused on the species of trees that we can't see the forest. You even got a lot of crap for the egg spoon that you make your eggs in the morning over your fire. And I just think in this day and age where so many slings and arrows come at people, and we're in a culture of attack and challenge, maybe you can offer some insight in have you just developed a thick skin, or how do you navigate the critics that you've had over the years?
I really believe that health is in the soil, that organic regenerative fruits and vegetables and the way the cattle are raised and they're grass-fed, all of this is what we need to do to come back to our senses, to pay attention to nature. And I can't think of a more delicious solution to all of our problems. I am sure about it. And I guess it's because I've had the 25 years of the Edible Schoolyard Project. And there are, this is a group of 1,000 students, teenagers, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders.
The worst.
And they have 22 different languages spoken at home in that population. So it's a pretty good test case. And I know that when they're engaged and empowered, to grow food and to cook it, that they all want to eat it. And they understand, and they will always take care of the land, and they'll always be able to cook for themselves. Now, this idea has spread around the country and around the world, and we have not really done anything other than put a website out there. But we're in every state there are edible schoolyards everywhere. There are almost 7,000 of them. Now, these have happened because the values of stewardship and nourishment and community and diversity are all deeply inside us. We love, we're part of nature, and the beauty is there. And I, again, was captivated by that when I went to Paris when I was 19, and I experienced food in a slow food culture. And I saw children coming home and eating for 2 hours with their parents for school lunch. I mean, home lunch.
Yeah.
And I saw the priorities given to sitting at the table and owning small businesses and shopping every day in the marketplace that was in the neighborhood. And this was in Paris. And everybody fed himself or herself in that way. And I just came back and I said, I want to eat like the French.
And you haven't wavered from that. You know, I know
No.
you dedicated your book to Carlo Petrini, who started the slow food movement. And I spoke to him once in a story I was doing about you. And I said, what is it about Alice? Why do you think she's, you know, been so successful and keeps, has changed how we eat? And he said, well, she never gives up. And clearly that's true. Do you, I mean, will you be doing this until the very end? I mean, you have been unwavering, especially, I've known you for a few decades and interviewed you several times, and people, you don't waver. How is that possible? I can't even waver about what I should eat for dinner.
Because I really believe that it's true. And I know this from the history of eating around the world, the practices of countries that I really admire. They still eat at the table in Italy. I lost what would I say? My admiration for the French when they let go of the marketplace in Paris and they took it out to the airport.
Mm-hmm.
And they started buying food globally because I felt like they were completely dedicated to the local food production.
Mm-hmm.
And when I lived there, they certainly were, but I have always believed that.
Right.
And then come to find out that Olivier Roland-Roger wrote a book recently. He took the title, The Delicious Revolution. And I thought, how great.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes through the history of France and the change. And it follows my manifesto perfectly. I wanted to tie the two books together.
Right.
Because, this has happened around the world.
Mm-hmm.
We have exported all of these ideas. But during the pandemic, so much has been exposed. I mean, can you imagine that cargo ship down in the Suez Canal?
That got stuck, yeah, what that did.
Stuck
right.
with the animals on it.
Alice, I want to ask you a question somebody just sent in, and this is, I think, a common concern, and in the book you do a good job just explaining this, but someone was wondering if you could comment on the economic inequality and the inability for so many people to access and buy local organic food. And, you know, sometimes it's time and people are working a lot of jobs. They don't have the money or the time to spend at a farmer's market. I know there are programs to double that, but the reality is it's hard for people to cook and eat the way that we all should be. Although I think the pandemic has helped people get back into the kitchen. But what a lot of people say that the movement is elitist or it's economically inaccessible for people. And how would you answer that?
Is it elitist to support the people who take care of the land and the farm workers? Is it elitist? I think no. And I know for certain that if you know how to cook, you can really make incredibly affordable food. I don't want to ever use that word cheap, but you know, I use Jose Andres as
Right.
his chicken example, because I can make 3 meals out of a chicken that cost $28.
Right.
He can make 6.
Tell me the 3 you would make.
Well, I would immediately serve a smaller portion of chicken. I would keep all the bones and make a chicken stock from them. I would probably take some of the breast meat and mix it with other things like carrots and celery and make a little chicken salad for a sandwich. But, you know, when you use the whole vegetable, when you use the ends of the chard, you don't throw anything away. You can make a vegetable stock. You can use those rainbow chard ends to mix in with the chard. But it's knowing how to cook. And everybody had that knowledge passed on in other cultures. But in this culture, we didn't have deep roots in the pleasure of the table or in growing food for flavor. We grew it for shippability.
Right.
And so when the fast food industry came in, they just took us.
Right market. And I think, you know, it doesn't take, and you've written some books that actually address this, it doesn't take that much to figure out how to have something fairly simple and easy and delicious to make for at the end of the day. Somebody's writing in and say, what do I do about, you know, I'm so tired at the end of the day. And how do you prepare slow dinners when you're tired and low energy? But, you know, I think you talked once about, you know, a tomato and a handful of beans that you could make a lovely supper with, you know? So
exactly. But we've been programmed again that we want to have a big portion of meat, that we want to use cheese, and if you don't use them except, you know, as seasoning and flavoring, and you're not thinking of them as the main thing. I mean, beans are so amazing. I mean, they're every color of the rainbow. If you make a pot of beans, which is what Fanny and I did, it's every week we'd have a pot of beans. Sometimes they were black and red, sometimes they were white and big. And we made that pot of beans. And we make greens as well. It could be anything. It could be chard, it could be kale, be a mix. It could be a little leftover salad in there. You're cooking it with garlic. And then you could take a tortilla, just cook it there and put in beans and greens. It's a meal you can make for yourself in a minute.
Right.
And so it's knowing, really, I think the traditional global ways people have cooked in the past is invaluable right now. I mean, who knew that children would like kale and pita bread? Who knew?
Right. Well, And I love that you hate the children's menu so much. It tell us a little bit about that, the idea that this little
Well,
menu was negative.
it's discriminating against the family table. It separates children as having different tastes than adults. It's almost a way for the fast food industry to get us to
Mhm.
get a really indoctrinated children's population that will become addicted to salt and sugar, and then
Mhm.
they've got them for life.
Right. It's hard to break.
So it's something that is tragic,
Mhm.
especially when 1 in 3 children is going to have diabetes.
Right.
How can anybody want to introduce them to sugar at an early age?
Mhm. Mhm. I think that culturally, though, there's a lot of challenges, right? To get people to eat this way. This is actually an interesting question that someone said that they've read interviews about how the political turmoil of the 60s inspired you to open Chez Panisse and fed the slow food movement to you in a while, like food, local food, and the importance and strength of growing local food at a time. So they wonder, do you see the potential for today's political turmoil, racial justice, social justice, the division between right and left? Is there a similar awakening that might happen since we're in tumultuous times again?
Well,
Similar food
thank you
awakening?
for that great question, because I think we keep putting Band-Aids on the issues. We don't get back to the systemic problem. And that's what I tried to talk about in the book. This is something that's very deep inside us. We have lost our values. And I believe that if we pay attention and if we teach them in public school, we teach diversity, we teach stewardship, we teach nourishment, we teach community through food, it could really bring children back to those to a very meaningful, joyful experience in relationship to their lives. And I know that we can do this.
Yeah.
We have to find that empowerment for children. We have, and I believe that food is that place. And wouldn't it be incredible if schools really supported the farmers and the ranchers who take care of the land? What if our public school system did that?
Be revolutionary.
I think so, but it would. I get very kind of inarticulate because I'm wanting to hand you some
I feel it.
apricots right to the tray.
To make me
I
understand.
want to feed you the ideas.
Mhm.
I had a very hard time writing a book about feelings. We had the hardest time talking about what slow food values are. What does stewardship mean?
Mhm.
What does it really mean? It means taking care. But people think of taking care as something, distasteful. To
An
have to
obligation.
care for instance. Yes, it takes time to take care to
Mhm.
feed somebody.
Yeah.
Or to take some care of somebody older.
Yeah.
But in fact, again, we been programmed into a whole other set of values that don't have that deep meaning.
Mm-hmm.
And so I keep coming back to taste, particularly, and smell, because
You talk about beauty too as one of the
and
things
beauty.
that
Yes.
and that leads off the section about what's going to save us and the pillars we need to move to. And I
Yeah.
thought you wrote about the importance of beauty as a kind of a daily practice, noticing beauty in such a lovely way. And it sort of took me back, because I'm like, do I actually take time to understand what's beautiful and why on a daily basis? That just little piece, I think, could go so far.
Well, we defined beauty at the Edible Schoolyard as a language of care. And so when Esther Cook, who happened to be the original, still is the main teacher at the Edible Schoolyard Project in Berkeley, she used to put a little bouquet of flowers from the garden on the tables in the kitchen. She used to have a kind of what she called her little altar for whatever was from the garden that they might be cooking with on the side table. She arranged the dishes in a very particular way on the shelves, so the kids, a very Montessori way of organizing things. But children who came into that room wanted to be there, and they knew that they were loved in a way. She made a Valentine card every year for every one of the 1,000 students, and was a heart that she stamped herself, and she said, "You are loved."
How does that link to changing the food system and changing? I mean,
Well,
it's a small thing.
well, when I know it's just nothing, but when you fall in love with nature, when you really understand that we are we're dependent on nature for our lives, that you begin to really connect with the falling leaves, the change of the seasons, the subtlety of that, and to treasure the moment. Now I'm looking out at my roses. I usually am gone in the month of May, and now I see my garden full of these roses, and I can't believe it. But we have been told that when you go outside, you got to have a lot of camping equipment and all of this stuff, and tents and protection, and walking around in nature is dangerous. And yet it's what we all need to do, is walk barefoot in the grass.
Mhm.
And I say that it sounds just an indulgence in some way for people who have grass.
Mhm.
But I really don't think about it that way. I think everybody can find beauty in their everyday lives. I mean, I always say it's just lighting a candle at a table,
Mhm.
but it's really spending 5 minutes and going outside and looking up, looking at the clouds, looking at the change in the time. But beauty is absolutely in the farmers markets.
Yeah,
And you don't have to buy it, you can just walk by it.
I feel it. Can I ask you a couple practical questions that people are throwing into the mix here? Are you ready? Kind of a speed round. We'll go through some of these.
Okay.
Someone says they need to, if they want to supplement local produce with food from a supermarket, sort of where would you go and how would you buy? Like if they needed to, you know, their farmers market stash perhaps is not lasting as long as they might, or, you know, a lot of us realistically go to the grocery store a few times a week to get things. Are there things in the supermarket that you feel like are are kind of sure bets or things that people can get. I don't know if it's canned garbanzo beans or an organic chicken, or I don't know.
Well, I think
Box
you
of
have to
Golden
ask.
Grams, which is my personal, but anyway, yeah.
Well, I always ask where it comes from. If it's not right there and clearly on the label. And I want to know exactly, are these, apples from an organic, local person? I ask those questions, and I don't just want to know about a chicken.
Mhm.
I want to know whether it really is free range. I want to know the name.
Mhm.
I want to know if there's any supplemental feed and where did that feed come from.
Not the
But
name of the
we,
chicken, the name of the
no,
farm.
not the name.
We're in
Maybe
a
I do know
Portlandia
that.
sketch now. Yeah, okay.
I love the idea that
Janet.
you could know the name of the chicken. We have chickens at the Edible Schoolyard, and they do have names,
Yeah.
and they do lay all the different beautiful colored eggs.
Mhm.
Now, that's one of the thrills of discovery these days, is that there are these array of colored eggs that are available to us.
Mhm.
And eggs, even organic eggs, are affordable and nutritious.
Mhm.
And so I just think that that's certainly a way to engage children with eating
Right.
them, is to have a blue egg
Yeah, it's beautiful. Now,
and
let me
read
ask you,
them Dr. Seuss.
all right, I think I kind of want that to happen to me right now, but, okay, so let's see, I'm gonna ask you a couple more questions. Now here's John, thinking of yourself, but I'm gonna ask the question, will Chez Panisse be open in October? We want to visit. So
Well,
when will Chez
we
Panisse
have
be open?
we have a plan to be open on the 1st of October. So he is in luck. But we want to open, we must open when there aren't protocols
Right.
about social distancing, because the restaurant's in a house and it's very, very small. And we can't afford to hire all the people that we need to work in the kitchen.
Mhm.
And so we are waiting until there aren't protocols, but he can be assured that there's going to be food to go and he can take it to a nearby park.
There you go. Thank you. What are you doing to celebrate your 50th birthday?
Well, thank you for asking that question. I'm hoping we can again celebrate an important birthday at the University of California.
Hmm.
And we're hoping that we can celebrate the Institute for Edible Education that we are going to be fundraising for at Davis.
What will
And
the
we-
Institute do? Tell us a little bit about it.
Well, I hope it can be a place of teaching teachers, teaching everyone about the beauty of food, about the nourishment, the regenerative ideas of how to work in a kitchen, how to run a business, how to live on this planet together. And so we're designing the building there in a very particular way. So that I said I wanted it to feel like the Pantheon in Rome. Now that's a little grandiose,
Right.
but I wanted it to have high ceilings. I wanted the light to come in from outside. I wanted it to have, roof gardens. I wanted it to feel good for the people in the kitchen, that they had a place to stop for lunch and to eat themselves.
This will be housed under what department or what area
Well,
of California?
it's a project that's going to be connected to all of the departments at
I
Davis.
see. I
And
see.
we hope that they can be engaged with food.
Mhm.
And I know that the education department is very excited about this project. And so we want to introduce food into every department.
Right.
And it will be also open to the general public, and I hope we can have chefs from around the world. And
This is your big
films.
50th birthday present, huh?
Well, it would be beautiful to
Your
have
anniversary
it
present.
funded.
Okay, so
Yes,
everybody, if you
but-
want to get Alice something to celebrate the 50th anniversary of Chez Panisse, help fund her
But
University of
the
California.
real deep present would be for the University of California to decide that food was part of their carbon neutrality initiative for 2025.
Mhm.
If they understood that this could be an economic stimulus for the whole state of California, if they made a path, if they used their brilliance to really make it happen and teach the values, it would change K through 12 in the state. It would be heard across the nation, and I dare say around the world.
Yeah, fantastic.
So this commitment would be such a birthday present.
There you go.
And I think that they really believe.
Yeah.
And I am very excited about the future.
But will you have a cake? I know you're not much of a sweets person, but what would be
You
your?
want to make one, Kim?
Do you remember that party for Marion Cunningham? Where you had 80 cakes. Marion Cunningham was a big influence on you, and she rewrote the Fannie Farmer Cookbook. It was a sort of mother confessor to many people in the Bay Area, and Ruth Reichel, you, many others. And for her 80th birthday, you had 80 different people make dessert because she loves sweets, right? You remember that?
What a good idea.
Yeah.
I forgot.
But you
all
don't like
about
sweets. You like maybe a crab. What do you like to eat at the end of a meal? I know probably one of those apricots, but
that. Yes. But I like a little sweet at the end.
Mhm.
Just a little one. We do candied orange rind or dipped in a chocolate. I love that at Chez Panisse at the end. But I know that that I'm happy to indulge myself whenever there's a birthday. We make a gâteau glacé with whatever fruits are in season in a layered way, and put meringue on the top, and then torch it. It's like a baked Alaska. And so you're eating the soft meringue with all of the flavors of the ice creams or sherbets. And it's one of the most delectable things that the pastry department has ever made at Chez Panisse.
Oh my God, you're hurting me. I feel like I just had a religious conversion, Alice. So good. Somebody wanted to know what you're having for dinner tonight. Or do you know?
Good question. I actually do know, because I knew that I would want something, after this talk. And I saved the soup that I got from Chez Panisse last night, which is it's an Indian, it's a dal. It's a chickpea.
Beautiful.
Kind of with a cumin oil that goes on top.
Oh my goodness.
And so I'm going to have that, and I'm going to have a Caesar salad that Chez prepared that's going to have a lot of shaved watermelon red radishes in it and little purple turnips in it. And that's what I'm going to have.
Oh, that sounds delicious. Oh. And you have started to go out to restaurants a little. I saw that you went to Zuni for a Zuni chicken on the Instagram. Are you a big fan of the Instagram? The like, here we are at the, I mean, I would think someone who has the aesthetics that you do would enjoy the art of Instagram, but it also has that distancing digital piece. So are you a big Instagram? You got a good Instagram game?
Well, I really like to do it when I really see something or feel something that I want to share with people. And I, you know, at this moment in time, we aren't allowed the real experience of restaurants. And if I can find something special that I could put out there, I'd like to do it. But and I've loved seeing Jacques Pepin's cooking shows that are replaying now, and some of the new ones he's making. And he's always been somebody who is a great teacher. He's so easy to learn from in one little session. You know how to make that chicken soup. You absolutely know.
Have you spent time hanging out with him much? I mean, would you consider him a friend, or are you just an admirer?
Well, I too consider him a friend. He helped us when my daughter went to Yale and we were trying to change the food and make a garden at Yale. And he offered us sometimes vegetables from his garden, and he came to that project. But he's always been sort of connected because of Julia Child and her close relationship with him. And because of the PBS that we all did, we have a kind of kinship. And I have such an admiration for him.
At this stage in your life, you could probably pick up the phone and connect with anybody in the food world. I mean, is there someone you really would love to sit down and have a meal with you haven't had a meal with yet? Or any cooks or people or,
Well, I'm in the place of wanting to feed people the idea. And so I really would like to have dinner with a few politicians in Washington right now.
I see.
Maybe in the Department of Agriculture.
There you go.
And maybe in the Department of Education.
Right. What would you feed, like, or I think Kamala Harris is a good cook, and also I think a believer in this kind of policy, and Cory Booker, some of the senators who are working on trying to reform the agricultural department, which is a challenge. What would you cook somebody what would you cook Kamala Harris to convince her to take up this cause?
Well, if she were here, I would think about one thing. If I'm in Washington, I would think about something else. And I cooked for 10 years coming to Washington in the middle of winter. And I went to the farmer's market always, and I know she goes to that same DuPont market in Washington. And so I call ahead and find out what was in the market. And that is where I begin. What is delicious at this moment in time? And I have to really taste it myself. I always cook a little bit ahead of time when somebody special is coming to dinner. I want to know that I like it a whole lot.
Beautiful.
And if I don't know how to cook it, I find somebody who can.
There you go.
And I bribe them.
Well, we're almost, I think, at the end of our time. Is there another book in you besides this? Is this it?
I think that's it.
Oh.
I think that's it. But, I keep thinking about my commune that I've promised to people. For when I get to a certain age, I want an intergenerational situation where we are having meaningful work that we're doing together. And maybe that meaningful work is connected to the school system.
And the next book.
Maybe the next book. You're right. Maybe. I have one more book that is coming.
Oh, yeah.
With Penguin. It's about school lunch. And I'm making a book with pictures in it of how we can cook school lunch that's culturally diverse and fits into the USDA reimbursement. And that's coming out.
Now that we might be going to universal school lunch, that would be a very thing. Yeah, beautiful.
Universal free school lunch.
Universal free school lunch. Thank you.
Organic.
There you go. Listen, do we need to toss it back to you now?
I think unfortunately we are just running out of time, and I want to thank you both. Kim, you are a fabulous interviewer, not surprising, given your background and what you do for a living. And Alice, it's always so great to hear you talk about all of this and with such passion and conviction and commitment and dedication and wisdom. And so thank you both for really such an enlightening and fun conversation. And Alice, I think, I don't know, we have several hundred people watching. I think all of them want to now come to your house for a dinner of your leftover soup with cumin and some garlic toast maybe
Right.
on the side, and the Blenheim apricots for dessert. So we'll all be over shortly, joining you,
Listen,
but it's a great meal.
Can I interrupt one? Somebody had a question and I'm just going to answer them because, you know, when will people get their books?
Oh, well, they're going to be shipped out. The book just got out. We just got copies of it ourselves. And they'll be shipped, and they'll get there as soon as we can get them to you, given the hazards and vicissitudes of all of the various platforms for mailing and shipping things. But we, hopefully if you don't get it within a week or so, give us a shout, but hopefully soon.
Rosa, thank you for asking that question. So, and thank you to everybody who asked the questions. They were fantastic.
Yeah, great audience. Thanks so much. Wonderful questions. I think we could go on for hours. I wish we could. I'm sorry we can't. Alice, enjoy your dinner. And Kim, thank you so much again. We look forward to having you all back again for Alice's next book.
Absolutely. It's a great honor. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Liz.